A very good afternoon to you all. Today, through this video lecture, I would like to share the calculation of mean of the grouped data with you, which is the part of your syllabus in statistics. So, when we are talking about the mean of grouped data, calculation of mean of grouped data. Let us clear few terms related to the same. That is, you should be clear with some definitions. What is data? Data, you know, is lying in the two forms. One you are saying is a raw data, then it is arranged data. A raw data and arranged data. What is this grouped data is? What is the difference between the grouped data and your data in actual form? Data in actual form, that is raw data. What is this difference? Then what are the class intervals? Their types. What do you mean by class mark, class size? Somewhere also you can add the word frequency. What is this frequencies? Class interval, class mark, class size, and then range is also there. You need to clarify these few of the terms: primary data, secondary data, that already you have discussed in your previous classes. So whenever you are speaking about this chapter statistics, please you remember, statistics is a branch of mathematics which deals with the interpretation of the data. Interpretation of the data through tabular forms, pictorial forms, in the form of your frequency tables, frequency polygons, pie charts, or other pictures like your bar graph or your histogram and so on, like ogives also. So, interpretation of the data. Okay, so let us clear what is data. What is data? So once you started tabulating something from your surroundings through observations, that is called data. Collection of the observations in one way or other is called the data. And as it is you are picking up and making a note of that is called the raw data. That is the raw data. But when you are arranging that data in a systematic manner, in the form of a table, in the form of a picture somewhere, so then it is called arranged data. Then it is called arranged data. So what is the difference between this grouped data and the data in actual form? So whenever it is lying in its original form, so we just have to pick the number of things from that, and I have to write how many times that number or whatever the observation I need to write. That number when I am mentioning to that table, that is called the frequency of that particular item. So the main difference between the grouped data and the ungrouped data is, in ungrouped data or raw data, the frequency is not given. Once you have mentioned the frequency to the particular item, then it is called grouped data. Then it is called grouped data. So in tabular form, always you will be finding one column where the frequency is mentioned all the times. So then that data is called a grouped data. So in class 10, your syllabus is concerned with the calculation of mean, median, mode. These three are the measures of central tendency and only of grouped data. No doubt, the previous knowledge is also very important, and just to keep a check upon that, questions can be added from class 9 also, which are based upon the calculation of your mean, median and mode of the ungrouped data, which already you have finished. So here our main focus will be upon the grouped data, how to calculate these mean, median and mode of the grouped data. So why do we feel need of making the groups? So I would like to quote one example here. Suppose I have conducted one test in your class of mathematics of 50 marks. Now the score can be there between 0 and 50. 0 and 50. 0 to 50 the students can score. So if I will start tabulating the marks like 0, 1, 2, 3, how many students score 0, how many students scored 1. So again some students I will be missing, because not necessarily all the students are getting the score in whole numbers. Some must be there in halves like 2.5, 10.5, 25.5 and so on. So something is missing there. So what I would like to do for my own convenience, I would like to divide these marks 0 to 50 in small groups of, like suppose I am saying 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, as well 40 to 50, like that. Now you see, I have made the groups. Onwards 0 to 50, that was my range. Minimum can be 0, no negative marking suppose is there, not there in the test, and highest will be 50. So I can score now everyone's marks from 0 to 50 by arranging the data in such a manner. So these groups, for my own convenience, I have written so that I can cover all the students, all their scores. So these are called the class intervals. These small groups are called the class intervals. So where there are two limits, one is the lower and one is the upper. So this is the lower limit and this is the upper limit. Now when these limits, upper limit of the first is matching with the lower limit of second, and so on, second with third, third with fourth and fourth with fifth, is there in continuity. Such a data is called your continuous data also. Or this data is also called the exclusive data. What I said, exclusive. This is the exclusive form. I come to make this term clear to you all why this is exclusive. So when you are considering these 0 to 10, so marks 10 scored by the student will not be the part of this class interval. So frequency of those students will be the part of your next. So 0 to 10. So less than 10 will be coded here. The student scored. But 10 will be the part of next. 10 will be the part of next. What does that mean? 10 is excluded from this class interval. 10 is excluded from this class interval particularly. That's why this form is called the exclusive form of the data. Exclusive, or this data is the continuous data. Now if I am speaking from this term point of view, like 1 to 10, then it is 11 to 20, 21 to 30, 31 to 40 and 41 to 50. Now you see 1 to 10, these are not in connectivity now. There is a difference. So these class intervals, again I have written, but you can see now 0 is not there. Score between 10 and 11 I will be missing. Between 20 and 21 also I will be missing, and so on. So no doubt that this data is called inclusive data, because now 10 will be included, as 10 otherwise is nowhere there in the next class interval. So 10 will be included. So that's why this is called inclusive. This is the inclusive form. Inclusive. So when this is countable, then it is called inclusive data. When this is not considerable over there, this is the part of the next class interval, then it is called your exclusive data. Exclusive and inclusive. So this is the difference between the two. Now let us go to the class mark. Class mark always will denote by this xi. So that is the mean of upper limit and lower limit. So if I will denote class mark for this, 0 plus 10 is 10 divided by 2 is 5. Then next 10 plus 20 is 30. 30 divided by 2 will make it 15. And so on. Now whatever the difference between the first two will remain constant throughout. So 5 plus 10 is 15, plus 10 is 25, plus 10 is 35, plus 10 is 45. Anything you can keep a check, it will definitely be matching. For example, here it is 40 plus 50 is 90. 90 divided by 2 will give you what? 45. So the difference between these will always remain constant. So let us see what happens here. 1 plus 10 is 11. Divided by 2 is what? 11 divided by 2 is 5.5. 31 divided by 2 is what? 31 divided by 2 is 15.5. Now again you see the difference between the two here is 5.5 plus 10 is 15.5. So next keep on adding 10. 25.5, then it is 35.5, and then it will become 45.5. And keep a check anywhere. 21 and 30 you will be getting somewhere 51, and half of 51 will be equal to what? 25.5. But the difference here now, 5.5 and 15.5, everywhere it is constant again, and you can see that is of 10. Here also the difference between the successive class marks, these are the class marks here. I have determined for these class intervals, and these are the class mark for these class intervals, but the difference here also is of 10 and here also is of 10. So now I will make one thing very clear to you, the definition of class size. So definition of class size, sometime we are saying, is the difference between the class intervals. So somewhere that is a bit controversial one. No doubt that is true for your exclusive data, you can consider that as upper limit minus lower limit, but is not true for this inclusive data. Here upper limit minus lower limit is 9, and the difference between the successive class marks is 10. So the size I have to take is the difference between the successive class marks. So then the correct definition of the class size is the difference between the class mark, not between the upper limit and the lower limit. So that is valid for both here also and here also. So class size you can define as the difference between the successive class marks. So why it happens here, why the difference is there in this and this? Because dear children, you see these are not the true class limits. As I said, 1 से less score अगर किसी का है तो that is missing. 10 से greater than 11 के बीच में किसी का score है, that is also missing. So these class intervals are not the true class intervals. These are not the true class limits. That's why I just cannot consider the class size as the upper limit minus lower limit. That is the reason there. So to make it continuous, there is a rule. From the lower limit you can subtract 0.5, and to the upper limit you can add 0.5. Once you will do that, it will become 0.5, it will become 10.5. Then here it will become 10.5, it will become 20.5, and so on, 25.5, 20.5 and 30.5 and so on. Now this is also converted into your exclusive form of the data. So exclusive form, to convert the inclusive data into exclusive, always keep on subtracting 0.5 from the lower limit and keep on adding 0.5 to the upper limit of every class interval. You will be converting the inclusive form into exclusive form. Now range. So range of the data is the difference between the lowest and the highest reading. Difference between the lowest and the highest reading. So here the range is 50 minus 0 is equal to 50. So that is also very important, because when we are speaking as our part of discussion for today's lecture is calculation of the mean of the grouped data. So mean is an average value. if you want to work out within this form of data, that is the inclusive form, definitely you go ahead, no question. Now the data, exactly the answer, that is mean, is lying between, is present in this data in actual, is there or not, not necessarily. So mean is not an appropriate measure of central tendency. Is an average value. So I can work out within this also, but will always be falling in its range. अब सपोज करो कि इसका आंसर कहीं आपके पास आ जाता है 30.5, कुछ ऐसा डेटा आपके पास हो, तो 35.5 exactly I just cannot see in these class intervals, but that is falling in this range of 1 to 50. That is falling in this range, and I have to consider that. Why I said? Because mean is an average value. Mean is an average value. So I just can consider that. So this is important to understand again what is the range of the data. So I hope all these terms are already clear to you from the previous classes point of view. You have done somewhere all these, what are the class limits, what are the class intervals, what is this class size, what is this class mark. So everything you have done, but to recapitulate the same here was very important. And when you are speaking from your statistics point of view, in every district you can find the Department of Statistics. In each DC office there is a branch which are dealing with this census and all. That is their work. In India, the head office, the Statistical Institute is there at Calcutta, and definitely you can Google the same and you can see what work is there and what are the advantages for our children. Also, after passing +2, there is an opportunity provided by the Government of India. Every year the test is conducted. You can join that department by clearing that test. So other inquiries you can have through the Google, or you can go ahead to join some definitely the prestigious institutes. Now let us speak about our calculation of mean of the group data as per our syllabus. So this can be calculated in 3 ways. There are 3 methods. One is the direct method. So in direct method, if I speak, so the formula we are using is x bar is equal to psi product of your frequency with class mark, their sum, and divided by the sum of all the frequencies. Sum of all the frequencies. So this symbol that I use there is this. This is called xi. Xi is denoting the summation. When I am writing fi, xi is product of the frequency and class mark. The sum of all the readings of that product is written as like this. And when I am writing xi fi means sum of the frequencies of the all readings, all class intervals. So divide the sum of the product of frequencies and class marks by the sum of the frequencies will give you the mean. So that is the direct method. Then second is your deviation method. Deviation method, this is called deviation method. Sometimes we are calling that shortcut method. Shortcut method, or sometimes we are calling the same method as assumed mean method. Assumed mean method. There are 3 names you can give to this second: deviation method, your shortcut method, or assumed mean method. And formula here we are using is x bar is equal to a plus xi fi di divided by xi fi, sum of the frequencies with the product of di with fi, and divided by the sum of all the frequencies, where a is the assumed mean. Where a is the assumed mean. I will clear this term when I take the example of same. So this is your assumed mean, where a is the assumed mean. On behalf of this, we are calling this method calculate the mean in second. Direct method is this. Shortcut or deviation method is this. And in step deviation method, when we are taking step deviation method, in step deviation, the formula we are using is x bar is equal to a plus xi fi ui and we are using and divided by xi fi into h. So a already I have cleared, that is the assumed mean, here also that is the assumed mean, and h here is the class size, where h is the class size. H is the class size. So h you can consider as the class size. So this is the third method we have to use to calculate the mean of the data. So this is the syllabus, and that is your exercise when you will be going through the chapter somewhere in your statistics. I think that is your 14th chapter, and exercise 14.1 is based upon these three methods which we are using to calculate the mean of the grouped data. So until unless question is not conditional, you are free to use any of the method to calculate the mean. But if it is mentioned to calculate the mean by using the shortcut method, then you are bound, or by the step deviation method, then again you are bound to follow that instruction. Now I'll pick one example to give you the explanation of all these three methods which we can use to determine the mean within a one question. So best way to revise the same is you just select one question, any question of your exercise, and get the mean of that by all the three methods. In that way you select 4 or 5 questions, I think is more than sufficient to make yourself clear with the concept. So I'm always making you people understand, do not study just to score the marks. Your learning outcomes should be very, very clear that after completing this topic, I will be able to calculate the mean either by using direct, by shortcut, or by deviation or step deviation method. So in that way you have to learn. For that you need to develop some critical thinking within yourself. That is very important from the learning point of view. If you are still believing or trusting in cramming and all, so I do not agree with that. That is not going to make you people efficient or to face the challenges of your life. So you select any of the question, be cool, be calm, and see whatever the procedure I need to follow. So take your time just in the beginning. You need to spend some quality time at the initial stage. So that is required somewhere. So you just can pick, suppose I am picking any example from my own side, then I will be applying these three methods over there. And that I suppose I am taking there, and I will use these three formulas to calculate the mean by all the three methods to make you understand how to calculate the mean of the data. Suppose one small test was taken of 50 marks, and the data is 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, 30 to 40, and it is 40 to 50. So the score, these are the class intervals. Frequencies are suppose given like this: 2, 1, 5, 4, 8. Now if I am looking for this method, find the mean of this data where the class intervals are given and the frequency is given. If you are looking for the first direct method, I know I have to find xi. So xi is what? That is 0 plus 10 divided by 2 is 5. Then it is 30 divided by 2 is 15. Keep on adding 10, 25, 35 and 45. So these are the class marks. And the fourth column will be giving you the product of this frequency with respect to the class mark. So here it is 2 5s are 10, 115s are 15, 25 5s are 125, 35 5s are 140, 360, 45 8s are. So this is the product of Fi into Xi. Now as per my formula, I need the sum of the product of these Fi Xi. So sum 650. Please keep a check. 650. And then the sum of the frequencies, that is equal to 20. So now if I apply the formula of direct method, so this Fixi and their sum is 650, I am getting there, and sum of the frequencies is 20. So I am getting the answer is 65 upon 2, that is 32.5. So mean of this data is 32.5 that I have calculated for you by using the direct method. Now suppose I am going for the second one. This was the direct method discussed here. Now if I use this method, that is the deviation, or you are calling the shortcut method for the same data. So now what happens? Formula you just remember. So I need to make one more column there. I need to make one more column there. In place of this, you remember the answer we got there, 650 upon 20. In first, that was 32.5. Okay. Now from deviation point of view or shortcut method point of view, in first you remember there were only 4 columns. Now fifth one I am adding is di. What is that? Di is deviation, that's why that is called di. Di is always equal to xi minus a. And finally I have to go for the column number 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4. In fourth column, direct method it was Fixi. So that was the direct method. So you always remember there are just 4 columns required in direct method. In shortcut method or deviation method, you need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns. 1 is increased. And when we proceed towards the last one, that is a step deviation, then you need to make one more column which will take you to the FIUI. So what is that UI I have to do extra? So then we need 6 columns there. So 4 columns in direct method, 5 columns in shortcut method or deviation method, and 6 columns in step deviation method. So how the readings changed, that you see. Now di, I said is x minus a. What is this a? I said is assumed mean. So that you have to assume here in class box. The number is odd. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 readings are there. So I will take this. 2 I will leave there. 2 I will leave here. So middle one I have taken as a. So this I will be taking as a. That is the mean, assumed mean. Fine. So now, if it is 25, so 5xi, xi is this. 5 minus 25 will make it minus 20. 15 minus 25 will make it minus 10. 25 itself is the class mark, so 25 minus 25 will make it 0. So above 0 all the readings will be in minus. And below 0 all the readings will now be there in plus. 35 minus 25. तो जो ऊपर आ रहा है वही नीचे आना शुरू हो जाएगा, but with positive. Then 45 minus this will be plus 20. So this is di now. So if you keep a check, पिछला जो कैलकुलेशन था वो थोड़ा बड़ा था भाई, अब वो रिड्यूस होता जा रहा है. तो रिड्यूस होगा, I will be taking fi di. So 2 into minus 20 is minus 40. 1 into minus 10 is minus 10. 5 into 0 is 0. 4 into 10 is plus 40. And then 8 into 20 is plus 160. So this is the product I am getting when I am multiplying fi with di. Now look at this. If you add minus minus, this is minus 50. If you add plus and plus, this is somewhere 200. So result I will be getting 200 minus 50 is what? 150. This can be within minus also. Doesn't make any difference in getting the answer. You do not feel scared कि मेरा ये जो sum है वो minus में आ गया. It can be minus also. Okay. So here it is in plus, no issues. That is 20 there. Now you use the formula. If you will be using here, x bar is equal to a plus xi fi di divided by xi fi. Substitute these values. A was 25 plus xi fi di is 150 over there upon sum of the frequencies is 20. So here you can do this cancellation. 25 plus 7.5. You know 15 upon 2 is 7.5. Again you will be back to your answer, that is 32.5. Or if you take the LCM, so 25 2s are 50. 50 plus 15 again will make that 65. So 65 upon 2, again that is equal to 32.5. So that is the mean I have now calculated by using the deviation method. Only the difference, you please keep a watch upon that. What is the advantage we are just finding with these methods? Here the reading was in 600 and here the reading now is there only in 100 and something. So that is the advantage. So that is applicable for the big frequencies point of view or big class intervals point of view. If the class intervals are in hundreds and thousands or frequencies are in hundreds and thousands, so I will give preference either to deviation or step deviation. So if I proceed towards the step deviation now, you will see that your reading again is going to reduce. How? Let us see. So then sixth column I said I need to remove this now, and first of all I will go for UI. What is this UI is? UI now is equal to di upon h. This is another column I have to add. And finally, in sixth column, I will be writing Fi Ui. So in step deviation method, columns increase to 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So one column stepwise you need to add. Direct with respect to direct method, in direct 4 we used. In deviation we used 5. Now in step deviation we are using 6 columns there. So now what is this Ui is equal to di upon h? Di already you have calculated over here. That is minus 20, minus 10. That is done. Di you know is equal to x minus a. But h, as I said, h is the class size. So if h is the class size, so here the size you can see data is exclusive or the successive difference between the class marks you can note is 10 over there. So if it is 10, so here h is equal to 10. Here h is equal to 10. Di is x minus a, so minus 20 upon 10 is equal to minus 2. So minus 10 upon 10 is equal to minus 1. And this will be 0, this will be 1 and this will be 2 of plus. These are 2 in minus. So minus 2 into Fi ui. Fi ui. 2 2s are 4 minus. 1 ones are 1 minus. Then 0 will be there. 4 ones are 4 of plus. And 8 2s are 16 of plus. Now you see. This is minus 5. And this is plus 20. And 20 minus 5 will make it plus 15. Plus 15. And sum of the frequencies already you have is equal to 20. And the formula I used there was what? X bar is equal to a plus xi fi ui divided by xi fi into h. This was the formula which I was supposed to use in step deviation. Let us see what happens to the calculations there. So if I substitute the values, a was what? 25 plus sum of this I am writing 15. Sum of the frequencies was 20 and into h was 10. 10 ones are, 10 twos are, so 25 again plus 15 upon 2 will be 7.5. Again we will be reaching at 32.5. So whether that was the direct method whether that was the deviation method or whether that is the step deviation method. Everywhere you can see your answer is coming 32.5, 32.5 and 32.5 here. So this is the best way I am sharing with you, just to make yourself perfect in one of the way. Just you need to focus your attention in all the three formulas and how we are proceeding. What are the differences? Now you see the grading over there. Here it was in 600. There it was in 100. Now it left only in 15 in terms of tens only. So getting reduced. So that is the advantage as I am proceeding. No doubt the columns are increasing, but your readings definitely are reducing. Your calculations are becoming more easier. So that should be the learning outcome. This is the purpose why these methods are added here in class 10. So that you can make the difference between these calculations and you can see as per your convenience to which you would like to give the advantage, but learning outcome should be very, very clear. That's why I am requesting you, do not study always to score the marks. Okay, so from my side, that much I think is sufficient for today's lecture. Please go through this. That's all from my side, and that's all about the solution for exercise 14.1. There are, I think, 7, 8, 9 questions are there in that. You pick any 2-3 questions today and just apply all these 3 methods. I assure you definitely will be enjoying the day. Thank you and have a nice time.